Good morning. For this morning's service, I wanted to take this opportunity to help us get to know both Tina and Lou a little better. But I wanted to share with you some interesting things about Native peoples in this country. When the first settlers, the first European settlers, came across the Atlantic or up from Mexico, they were surprised when they arrived. They thought they were landing on empty land. Instead, they found themselves in a land already inhabited by literally thousands of people from all different groups of people. We call those people indigenous people. It's a big word, I know, but it means people who are native. We used to use the word Indian, but that's not a really good word to use because it kind of lumps everybody together, and we don't get to know them and who they are individually. So we call them indigenous people, and we learn about their nations and what they did and who they are. For example, the people who live in the northwest part of the United States, their nations are very different than the people who live in the southwest part. Some of the tribes in the northwest live in big log houses, and they make totem poles because they have access to beautiful big pieces of wood. Whereas the people who live in the western part of the United States on the Navajo reservation, they don't have access to so many trees, but they build hogans where they live. And they've learned to use their sheep to make beautiful blankets which tell the story of their creation and their beliefs. So today I thought it would be fun to learn a little bit more from Lou Powell and from Tina Campbell about who they are and where they come from. So I'm going to invite them down here to join me, and I'm going to step off camera to ask my questions. So Lou and Tina, if you'll come stand here. And just stand on the edge of the platform there. Will that work for the camera, Chris? Thank you. So I'd like to start, Lou, with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? I'm also really interested in that shirt you're wearing.
Okay, thank you. My name is Louis Powell. I'm Afro-Indigenous Cherokee, and my name in Cherokee is Sitting Panther. I was raised in Virginia. Part of my family tree is Eastern Cherokee. I'm not one of those who traveled to Oklahoma, but my great-grandfather decided when people were being moved not to go west, but to go east. So he ended up in the swamps of North Carolina and Virginia. Wow. So that's part of my heritage. And the shirt that I'm wearing is called a ribbon shirt. This is a stylized version of one because many ribbon shirts were just that. They were strips of cloth that had been torn and put over a sack, a grain sack or something like that, and just attached to it and made into a shirt. It's just that simple.
Were they worn for special occasions?
Generally, yes, because I'm from the eastern part. We did not travel and have all the buffaloes and everything, but our thing was turkey.
Oh.
So you see a lot of turkey in the eastern part of the tribal communities.
Yeah.
So what I'm holding is a turkey feather fan, and because it represents where I'm from. But the other parts would be possibly an eagle feather from the plains and from the west. Unless you go to Northwest, where they use raven.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And can you tell us a little bit about the work you've been doing in the diocese?
Well, in the diocese, part of my role was to travel throughout the diocese, helping congregations to learn about indigenous activities across the church but also within their own communities. And many times, I was a bridge between those indigenous communities and the local churches. So I was sort of a mediator, and also hopefully one who could impart some information to our church communities so they learn that they live in harmony with other people.
Thank you, Lou. Tina, can you share a little bit about your background?
Yes, thank you. My father was from Mexico, and his family came up to escape the revolution. My mother was Navajo, born in Morenci, Arizona. Morenci is a copper mining town. She was orphaned as a child, and at that time the children were split up, and my mother went to live with the white doctor's family in the community. And when they moved to California in the early part of the 20th century, they took my mom with them. So she grew up in Southern California, which is where I grew up. So what I have observed in the Navajo culture is what I have taken in my visits to Arizona, in my reading, and in my own sort of spirituality, I think. I'm not sure that the camera can see it, but I am wearing my mother's bracelet that was passed on to me. It is turquoise and silver. The Navajo are wonderful silversmiths. And when I was in Navajo land on my sabbatical, I learned that the stone itself was a Morenci stone, which made it even more special because that was where my mom had been born.
Right. That's wonderful. Thank you. And what do you hope to do in your new role?
Well, my new role, I come, much like Dean Matthew, I come into it in a very unusual time in our common life. My hope is to follow in the footsteps of Lou Powell and to continue the work he's done around helping people understand about Native communities and what has been the history in our diocese. Mm-hmm. And I actually will say a little bit more about that in my sermon.
Oh, that's awesome. And you mentioned that your mom grew up in Southern California, she moved to Southern California. But I know that both you and Lou, can you tell us, are there lots of Native peoples who don't live on a reservation?
There are.
Yes.
Sometimes for removal because people were sent away. They were sent away to schools and they were sent away to other places. And sometimes for economic reasons because there were jobs or other things Available. I imagine that's how my mom's family got to a mining town in northern Arizona.
That's wonderful.
About 70% of First Nations people do not live on a reservation.
Wow. So your work is both for people that are in communities and also people that live on reservations still on their land.
Yes.
Well, thank you both. Thank you, Lou, for the work that you have done, and Tina, thank you for taking on this task. We're so grateful to both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie.